welcome. My name is Cody Davis from Hand in Hand Recovery Center, and we are here on the podcast, The Ripple Effect, with the one and only Dr. Diane Sherman. Super grateful to have you out today. For those who don't know, Diane and I have the opportunity to run certified alcohol and drug counselor education classes together. But Diane started as my educator, my clinical supervisor, and the relationship that we've had to or that we've gotten to grow over the years has been so pivotal and important to who I am today and the things that I know and the things that I continue to explore and try to open my heart to. And just you're such a big part of that, and challenging so many of those early recovery fundamental thoughts that 12-step recovery kind of brought me into, and kind of really starting to make things more wholesome. And so forever grateful for you and extremely grateful to have you here today.
It's nice to hear. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate hearing that. It's good to be here. It's good to be able to share this space with you, this experience with you, and just know all that you have done in your growth, from those times sitting in class to where you were then and there to here and now. It's pretty miraculous, really. And I think that's the beauty of the work that we get to do in our own work, and then also be able to see how that parlays into our professional work. And that's what you've done. Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah. You're killing it.
So could you tell us a little bit about, what it is that you do or that you've kind of done in the past as kind of in the space of healing and helping others heal and all of that?
So I guess it depends on how far back you want to go. But in the short version, I enlisted in the Army, and I was in the Army for 15 years. And that's where I got my original education and training and experience in addiction counseling. It was not something that I chose, it chose me. And for the many years that I've been working in this field, even times of trying to slide away from it, I've never been able to slide away from it. It's always been there. So that early training for me really set things up. I'm very adept to the military and very grateful for all that I learned. But that was really just a very early fundamental elementary piece in my career. It set it up for me, but it was really just that foundation. Then, after I got out of the Army and then I started doing my own private practice, it's only been because of people who have come across my path who have helped me learn to feel better and good in the integrity in the work that I do now.
Mm.
So it's been an evolution, and in the work that we do, you start with class, you start with supervision. It doesn't make sense. How is all of this going to make sense until you get in the field and you start learning more, and you start practicing it. And then, gradually we just kind of move away from the worry about the book
Hmm.
to the presence of being with the person that I'm with, and just kind of following that intuitive piece. So, was this a career I chose? Absolutely not. But I could have done anything. The military could have put me in x-ray technician for all I knew, and the universe just placed me right there
Mm.
in alcohol and drug counseling. And yeah, so I've been doing it all of these years, and have just come to really love and appreciate not only the work of working with clients, working with recoveries, but also working with students, and helping them learn, and now we get to share that same
Yeah.
experience back with those new students who are in class with us now, and help them learn what you learned from me and what I learned from many along the way.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fun.
So with I feel like asking you this question specifically because you do have the military background.
Yeah,
Thank you for your service.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what does this word service, in recovery
Um,
we are constantly talking about this concept of being of service to others and
mhm.
what that means to a person in early recovery to help get sober, but also being a provider. It's not just about the service that I provide for my clients. It's the service that I'm providing for my community. And so
Yeah.
I'd really love to just get your thoughts on this concept of service and what that really means to you and how it ties into your life and the
Yeah.
life work that you've done.
So service, by definition, service is doing something for someone else that they would find their betterment. In many ways, in pure definition, it is about task or doing for or finishing a project or something like that. However, we work in social services, right? And it brings a totally different connotation when it comes to the aspect of social service. So I think about it in a way in the work that we do of helping others find their optimal recovery and wellness.
Mm,
And there's, pieces that go through that. How do we navigate in service with them? How do we sit with them with their struggling, when they're celebrating? How much do we do, not do with and for them? How much do we do with and for ourselves? But fundamentally, as I was thinking about this question, it really is about helping others find their optimal wellness and recovery. And many times when I've had the call, "Oh, hey Dr. Sherman, I just got sober and I've been in treatment, I've been in recovery for 6 months and I just want to give back.
mm,
I just want to give to others what was given to me." And that's how many people I think that we know find their way into the field and maybe find their service
mm,
in connecting. I often say, turn your passion into your profession. So helping them find their service of giving back. And hopefully, some stay and stick all the way through. Some might not stick all the way through to the profession, but might learn something different in what they learned in their service work. And some may really just find their calling and
mm.
whatever that means in the continuum, whether it is peer support, whether it's 12 step, whether it's, in the community of service work or in a professional, capacity. But, the short story I would say is helping others find what their optimal recovery and wellness is. And that's not something we can give, right? We can guide, we can encourage, we can counsel, we can hold accountability, but they find it when they find it, when they're ready to step into that they need to step into, whatever that means for them, releasing or surrendering or agreeing or adopting. Mm.
Well, it's kind of the real concept of individualized care,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I have my experiences, and I even have technically like all of these other experiences that I've watched other people have, right? But if I actually boil each one of those down, none of them are the same. There
Yeah.
might be similar things that take place, but each person is their own person, helping them find like what's the path that's going to work for you,
Yeah.
because it is such an individualized process. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be. I think when we sit back and really embody what that means, an individualized process, I think that's really a bit of the true reality of addiction counseling. Because we throw that term around a lot, an individualized plan, an individualized care, an individualized, recovery, but embodying it really, I think, makes that person to person connection to really help them find what it means for them. And that's something that I learned very new in my career, maybe in 4 or 5 years ago. I heard it said an individual's recovery is what they say it is.
mhm.
And when I came up in this field, my training in this field was abstinence only, right? And then to learn these different aspects from different people along the way. And of course, our field has changed, has evolved. We've had more evidence based practices. We've had more infused into the quality and the depth.
Mm,
So when I heard that, I was like, hmm, never thought about it that way.
mm.
But consideration. So helping them find their optimal recovery and wellness. Yeah.
So important because, when it's almost like a conversation we were having earlier where it's like
Yeah.
we have these messages that kind of get told to somebody if it has to look this way. Well, when I don't meet that box,
Yeah.
then I'm stuck in my shame messaging and I'm stuck in the I am worthless and I can't cut the grade and all the other things. And it's like, and just kind of unpacking the amount of time that it's like, cool, man, maybe there's been plenty of times that I've said stuff to people and I'm like, I promise that that wasn't my intention to like kind of frame it that way, but I can see how it's received that way.
Yeah.
And just kind of continuing to be aware to, what is the language, what is the methodology, what is my approach with this individual to keep this open, but also help you get to where you're going.
Yeah, I think that's about h- how do we embody or give grace to a process that is an individual process. I might have what I know, what I've lived, what I've learned, but that's mine, and it doesn't have to be yours. And I think that can also be a developmental professional process,
Mhm.
right? That we learn who we learn from or who we're supervised by, and it becomes this kind of, oh, okay, this makes sense. 1 + 1 = 2. It fits into this box. A plus B. Here we go with this treatment thing.
Mhm.
And then as we, learn more, gain more, allow ourselves to get outside of the structure of a box, but still maintain authentic treatment with an individual, it can be, yeah, so what does your path look like?
Which brings me to my next question for you, which, especially with somebody that's kind of seen the evolution of treatment, addiction counseling, that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
what does recovery mean to you today?
yeah.
Like what does that look like for you today?
Ooh, it has definitely changed. Like I said, when I first was trained in this field, and we're talking about the 70s when I enlisted in the military, and everything was very fundamental out of the 12-step process, community, and so on. So that's what I learned in terms of abstinence. Also, there was not a lot of evidence based practices, there was not a lot of anything. It was just don't drink and go to meetings. Take the cotton out of your ears, put it in your mouth, sit there and absorb. And now I think, the to your point, the question about what does recovery look like? For me, it's looked very different in many different ways over different decades in my life, and how I look at it professionally, like through that professional lens. And I think that's a tribute to the work that we do, to the people that we know, to the people who have come up in this field before us, who have infused in different considerations
Sure.
for what recovery looks like. So it's an evolutionary process that has grown like any other. That you start with a concept or a seed, and more information comes in, and oh, it could look like this or it could look like that. So now I'm very open to this statement of recovery is what an individual says. If they get sober hanging out at a coffee house, cool. They're sober for today and for their one day at a time. If they get sober in treatment, if they get sober in the rooms, if they get sober in church, if they get sober in the woods, wherever they get sober, and their recovery is whatever that means for them, you know. And I don't have to fight with that. Like I used to have to fight with it in
Sure.
my concept of what I learned. It was like, oh no, 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 that couldn't be
Sure.
right. It doesn't fit in this concept. So that's been an evolutionary process for me to get out of the fundamental of what I learned and into the consideration of
Mhm.
others, and then that shifts from me focused to other focused, and what we can do together, and helping that individual toward their recovery.
So it sounds like to me like, this idea of collaboration
Yeah.
with individuals has been so, I guess, key to, success in this for you. And so I guess, and I'm not sure that there is a direct answer, but what do you think is something that kind of like blocks people from that continued open-mindedness? Because I've definitely met plenty of other addiction counselors who are people who are my predecessors and stuff like that, who they don't have that attitude, right? Of there is still that very like, nope, it's got to look like this because this is how I was trained and this is what we know works. What for you as a provider who's been doing this for a long time, what keeps your heart open? What allows for you to be in that space of I I have other things to still consider.
Keeping me in check.
Mm,
I can be a very strong-willed person. I can be very direct in getting things done. And yet, there's times where I can hold myself back out of fear or out of messaging or out of, oh, I didn't learn it, that kind of way. And I think it's just been life experiences and people who've come across my path where I've gained the comfort of being able to say, hmm, I can see that. I may not agree with it. I don't have to agree with it, but I can see that. And if that works for you, then how can we work that together? But ego can be so strong and can be so fundamental in many ways with keeping us moving forward and getting things done and seeing what we are doing. And it can be crippling, right?
mhm,
So if somebody, I don't necessarily take a harsh view if somebody says, "This is how I was trained, and this is the only way I'm going to do this," because if that works for them, and if that works for the people that they see, then cool.
yeah.
Not everybody I think is bred or open to collaboration. I certainly haven't been in many ways, but I've learned the benefit of it over the years and people who have come across my path and to know, yeah, I can be solid in this and I can be solid in us too, and still see that we can get things done. It doesn't have to be me.
Mm. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, that what does, you kind of caring for yourself and filling that cup and making
Yeah.
sure that you called it checking yourself, right? What does checking yourself and
Yeah.
making sure that you're in a space of, hey, I am okay and I'm good to do the work that I'm doing and all of that, like what is, I mean, I feel like we talk about it from a self-care lens
Yeah.
at times,
Yeah.
but I feel like especially if you're doing this work, it's more than just self-care. So like
Yeah.
what is it that you do to keep that tank full, keep it in check, as you put it?
I um, have to be intentional with scheduling myself in.
Mm,
And I have gone over the years with ignoring it, with getting by. I'm strong. I don't often necessarily see or haven't in the past necessarily see the need to take a break or I'll, in the military would say you can sleep when you're dead. Just get this done, right? So a lot of things that I learned I mean, I can even hear my father saying, if you want something done, do it yourself. It's the only way that it'll get done correctly when you do it yourself. So, those values and those things that we are raised with are there. And then we grow into who we are and, just trying to find that balance. There have been times where I've not been good about self-care, where I'm just pushing through, getting it done, getting it done, getting it done, and then, you know, falling over in exhaustion. I have found in the past couple of years that to be more true, considering where I'm at in my life now
mm,
and having to be a caregiver with my husband.
mm,
But I've also found in just this year, 2024, that it is okay to take time and to take vacations and to get away. It had to be a mind shift for me because in this field, we grow in this field to help others,
mhm,
right? We grow in this field to say, what can I do to help you? And that is this process of counseling. And I'll take care of me, when I have time to take care of me. But definitely it has to be an intentional scheduling in. So now I am not just saying that, I am doing that. And it does feel better. I've gotten back into the gym. When I am in the gym, I sleep better, I eat better, I have a better outlook on life, I'm more relaxed. So I know that for me, that when I'm not exercising, taking care of myself, that I can very easily get off point. Um, Coming back to some of those things that I might choose to put away, but fundamentally can help me. Um, it's easy to say, put the mask on yourself before you put it on others. It's hard to practice it,
Yeah.
and it takes that intentional practicing. And I am a doer person. I am not a sit back and relax person. So I have to battle with myself all the time. It's easier for me to tell you to do that than it is for me to put that on for myself, but I've learned if I don't.
Is it easier for you today to recognize the burnout and to recognize, when you're experiencing the passion fatigue or overloaded or anything like that? Has it gotten easier?
I don't think it's gotten easier, because I am a doer.
Mm,
Um, but when I noticed it, I just went on vacation a couple of months ago. And I was just telling somebody this the other day. Every time that I was in the hotel, I was sleeping for 4 days. I would go to an event and I would celebrate with the people who I met with in New Mexico, who I've known for many, many years. And I'd come back to the hotel and I would fall into the bed. And I didn't think I was that tired. I
mm,
didn't realize I was that tired. It didn't ever occur to me. I'm getting things done.
no.
So that was a fundamental shift for me to say, hmm, I am in New Mexico with friends who I haven't seen for 6 or 7 years. And I'm sleeping in the hotel for 4 days. And it wasn't until Tuesday, when I was ready to get on the plane, that I noticed I felt relaxed.
Mm,
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's like, wow. So I don't feel burned out, like what you talked about. But yeah, that was something. That was something
mm,
for me to see, like, hmm, that was something.
mm.
Yeah.
Good deal. With your extensive experience in the field, what are some of the biggest differences about when you started this work in the field versus where you're at today?
Evidence-based practices, what we've learned, and how to apply theory into practice has been around in psychology for many, many years, and somewhat in social work for many, many years. In addiction counseling, it has not. We evolved out of the 12-step movement, if you will. So the professionalization of our field, coming from what has traditionally been perceived as a paraprofessional and into where we are now with licensure and certification and professionalism and so on, has definitely been an evolving process. I remember in 1991 going to a national conference at Fort Walton Beach and seeing Alan Leschner, who was the director of NIDA at that time, show on these screens PET scans. This is your brain on cocaine, and this is normal, this is cocaine, this is recovery. 1991, I remember looking at that and listening to that. And all these years, I remember that conference and how seminal that work has been in our field, which has now shifted in the past 10 years, perhaps, from a willpower get it together. If you can, I can. Here's your brain on drugs, and so on, to a brain disorder.
Mhm.
It's amazing, I think, to think about it. I've witnessed it, I've seen it, I've talked about, but when I really sit down and think about it, for that information that we can now share with our clients to say, yeah, this is a brain disorder. This is neurotransmitters, and this is reward pathway, and this is survival brain and executive functioning brain, and all that we've known. I think it's powerful not only in us being able to transfer that information to our clients to help them in their recovery, but to help them know,
Mm.
hey, I'm just not that crazy. Or I'm not who they said I would
Sure.
be, or any other, you know, ad nauseum messaging that they may have in their own mind of what they grew up with and what they're trying to unpack. So, I think psychiatry and psychology got a very early start, naturally
Sure.
so, because of how things evolved out of the founders and out of the greats
Mm.
who set the stage. And then here we come, little old addiction counselors who just want to give back and do
Sure.
something. And the certification process came on board, the licensure process came on board, the quality of scope of practice eventually came on board. And, we are in this professional capacity. And that's only been, in 40 years that I've been doing this work. Our field has really only been seen in the American Medical Association since maybe what, the 50s or the 60s as a disease. And so, the model, even then, of disease model to medical model to now brain model
Mhm.
has evolved, you know.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask specifically because I think that the thing that's more happened, at least recently, is more of this notion of it's more in tandem with a mental health disorder, right? And so, what are some of your thoughts around that as somebody who's seen that kind of evolution? Do you think that the kind of notion of substance use disorder as a category of a mental health disorder, that is helping, our field, our exploration and healing people, or, do you think that it's muddying the waters?
I don't know. I've not really thought about that answer. Is it helping the field? Is it really muddying the waters? I can tell you that years ago, I remember working in Atlanta and, hospital based systems in alcohol and drug treatment. You would come in the door and you would go down this hallway for mental health, and you would go down that hallway for addiction counseling. And in many ways, that is and was and continues to be a model due to insurance,
Mhm.
right? But that was set up many years ago, somewhat by scope of practice, somewhat by education, somewhat by the silo effect of insurance. As the field grew, I think we always knew, but it became a bit more evidenced of the saying of 80% of the people who were in alcohol and drug treatment had some kind of mental health concern. And 80% of the people in mental health had some kind of alcohol or drug use or experience. And so the treatment and the evidence I think behind that is come more into fruition to support that. I think there are models that say treat in tandem, and there are some models that say treat separately, depending on what the separation of the issues are. I don't care as long as people get sober,
Mm.
right? As long as people get well. That's from a very personal perspective. Not that I disregard, the models and the information, and we know more, about what can really help people get well, and what that wellness means. But I don't work in it enough anymore where I would say, is that really muddying the waters? Because I'm not that kind of full-time practitioner
Sure.
anymore. Um, I gravitated more into education. Still do some work with the works that I do in the counseling and the court-based, evaluations and things that I do, but I'm not in the throes of like everyday
Sure.
treatment like I used to be. I love it. I still get jazzed when I talk about it. And I can still see myself kind of in the rooms doing, experiential and group counseling and all of that fun stuff. But when I grew up in the field, or as I was growing in the field, it really was this bifurcated kind of process: alcohol and drug over here, mental health over there. And I think there's, pros and cons
Mm.
to both sides of it. If we go back to originally what we were talking about, and that was individualized care.
Mhm.
What does this individual
Yeah.
need? And how do we guide that? How do we help them with moving toward what their optimal wellness is? I think one last thought is that we rarely get to see the full fruits of our labor, right? Many times we're Johnny Appleseed. We're just kind of planting seeds or helping with a little stabilization or helping someone with getting back into their pathway of recovery. We may or may not see the fruits of their optimal recovery.
Mhm.
I remember working within the juvenile justice system. And one of my counselors had said she saw one of her clients who was a return um, youth coming into the system. And one time she was approached by him in the community, and he had aged out of the system. And he had said, "Hey, Miss So and so, do you remember?" And, with us, confidentiality and everything, you kind of like be careful about what you might say and what this young person may say. And he said, Miss So and so, the problem with me is every time I went home, I went back to an environment where a family member was using. But the last time I went home, my family member also got into treatment. And now we are both
Mm.
sober. And this was at that time, I want to say maybe a 17 or an 18-year-old kid.
Mm.
So sometimes, we never know, but sometimes we might not see. Even working with youth, we may not see until maybe they bump into us at the grocery store or, down the road, or we see them in a conference and they're like, "Hey, I remember you. You were my case manager."
I was about to say that's probably
Yeah.
the cooler piece for me is the amount of people that are now working in the field that I'm like, dude, I was your counselor.
Yeah.
You were such a
Dumpster
dumpster
fire.
fire, yeah, dumpster fire of an individual, and now you're helping people and spreading the message. So it's definitely it's cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It lets us know that we don't know,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't
I
know.
definitely consistently am reminded of the people that I think are going to be the winners often aren't, and the people who I'm like, you're the last person who's making it is the rock star, you know.
No
So
kidding.
yeah,
No
so
kidding. I remember that discussion years ago, one of the first places I worked at down in College Park. And I was with an EAP company, and we worked with a major automotive company, and their insurance at that time in the 90s was you get 90 days of Ridgeview or Peachford or wherever, or 30 days every so often, and they would go back in every 3 or 4 months, go back in. And remember saying, if we knew, we'd be able to stop this. The one who looks good coming out might be his third time back around. And you and I both know there are people who we know who are in this field and in recovery today who never stepped one foot into treatment, but they found it somewhere else
yep,
for them. And they've got double digits. And it's amazing, to know that.
so,
Sometimes it's the universe.
yeah. So you've clearly made such an impact, you know, tons of people's lives, and you know, even the field, what it looks like, how people view this thing that we call addiction counseling. Um, with the time that you have left in this world, what's the continued impact that you're looking to continue to make moving forward?
I was thinking about this. You shared that question with me and thinking about it driving over. I think the thing for me in terms of the impact would be I was in classes with her and I still hear her in my ear when I'm working with the people I'm working with.
Mm,
So, knowing that you've had the opportunity to share a journey with somebody and now they are finding that in their way, in their path, it's a, sorry, I'm
mm,
getting a little emotional here. It's a powerful experience. And and to know that it's not just me, but it's an opportunity that they grasped along the way so that they too can find that, and that maybe they now can share the message
mm,
with others who say, hey, I can see myself being an addiction counselor because I can see you up in front of me in that class. And I think that that's the a bigger piece of sharing and carrying in that message and hoping that others, can find it. I would not have said that many years ago, but now I think in my life, things we all grow, we mature, we have different people that influence us, we have different experiences that influence us. And I think that's a more meaningful, my goodness, that's a more meaningful thing of, oh yeah, I can hear
I'm
that.
not
Oh,
rescuing, though. I'm
sorry.
not rescuing.
I can hear that, oh, individualized care. Oh, take a breath. Oh, find what you need to listen to the story, not just get the evaluation done. And people along my way helped me see that.
Mm,
And so, that's the cool thing I think about being in the field a little bit longer
yeah.
is that maybe we can see that in students who come after us.
Mm, 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 mm. That's why we do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what we
I
hope
mean,
for.
I mean, that's quite frankly not to get all super punny about it, but like that's like the definition of the ripple effect, right?
Mm,
It's not just about like, oh, what can I do? It's more about like, hey, what are these other people that are around me? What are they then doing?
yeah.
To then continue to carry the message, continue to heal, all of that. So,
Yeah, I think that's a powerful metaphor because if you think about ripple effect, you're just thinking about dropping a stone in the water and seeing where those waves go, and that those waves are going to be a little bit more defined in the beginning, but they might kind of level out and eventually they're going to hit a space. Maybe they stop at that space, but maybe they rebound
mm,
back into the ripple of the water. So that's a cool mantra or title that you have with this podcast,
yeah,
the ripple effect. What we give, maybe we see it, maybe it diminishes, maybe it comes back. And the nature of the human condition is tough, right? We've got
mhm,
this tough exterior, or we got clients that we're working with who are like, oh, well, like you just said, would you rather I do it in front of you or behind your back? I'm gonna do me. And that we could either take an action or a boundary or a therapeutic approach,
mhm,
when we see that happening. So I think also with the ripple effect, if you will, that when we see our clients getting well enough to say, it's trying to find that discernment around. So, what do they really mean by that? I can either do it in front of you or behind your back. Is that their ability of sticking up for what they believe? Is that aggression? Is that passive aggression? Where is that? We can kind of learn to look at it in a way of what does it really mean for them.
mhm,
So maybe that aspect or that metaphor of
yeah,
ripple effect can have kind of even a therapeutic or a uh, counseling metaphor.
mhm, mm. I'm so grateful for the time that we've gotten to
Yeah,
have today.
thanks.
You
It's
kind
been
of
good.
sharing with us. If there is one message that you want to leave with us and those people that we're talking about that we want to leave that ripple effect with, what do you think it would be?
in terms of leaving that message for them, it would be, hang in there, right? Whether it's addiction counselors, whether it's counselors in training, peer supports, or clients, hang in there. There's a saying, don't give up before the miracle happens. Sometimes our ego just kind of like wants it now, wants, that immediate satisfaction. And sometimes life has to show us how and when to slow down
Mm.
and when to listen, when to drink, when to take it in, when to pause. Um, so, in the continuum, we talk about what we do professionally as well as the people that we're working with, don't give up too soon.
Mm.
Don't let yourself get in the way of yourself.
Mm.
If not, I'll see you again.
Hopefully.
I'll
Hopefully.
see you again.
Hopefully. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Yeah, thanks. It's been fun.